The American Algorithm, Part 1, The Nudge. The first time Ricky Fontaine declared bankruptcy, he threw a party, invited every reporter in Atlantic City to the grand ballroom of the Fontaine Plaza, the casino he'd managed to bankrupt, despite the mathematical impossibility of losing money when you literally owned the house odds, and served them champagne he couldn't afford while explaining how losing everything was actually winning. Chapter 11, he said, that bronze spray tan gleaming under the chandeliers, is just another word for genius. You know what losers do? They pay their debts. You know what winners do? They restructure. The reporters laughed because the champagne was good and the shrimp was jumbo, and besides, what else were you going to do in Atlantic City on a Tuesday? But Marla Chin, covering for the Inquirer, noticed something the others missed. Behind that salesman's smile, Fontaine's eyes were doing calculations. Not financial ones, those had never been his strong suit. Social calculations, measuring who laughed loudest, who looked skeptical, who could be bought with proximity to even this tarnished kind of fame. That was 1993. By 2016, he'd parlayed that talent for reading rooms into something nobody saw coming. The White House. How? Marla asked her editor the morning after the election. She'd covered Fontaine for 23 years, watched him fail upward with the determination of a roach surviving nuclear winter. How does a man who bankrupted a casino become president? Her editor, Jim Nowak, looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. Same way the casino went bankrupt. The house doesn't always win when someone's playing a different game. The different game, as they'd learn later, was being played by people Fontaine had never met in rooms he'd never entered, while he was holding rallies in Rust Belt towns, promising to restore the America that existed mostly in pickup truck commercials. A company called Mindbridge Analytics was parsing through 50 million social media profiles with the kind of attention usually reserved for cancer genomes. Dr. Ashley Volkoff, former quantum physicist turned data scientist, would later testify before Congress that she didn't know the data was stolen. "We were told it was a partnership," she said, her voice steady despite the cameras. 50 million users had opted in to personality assessments, 2,000 data points per person, favorite movies, relationship status, political affiliation, but also reaction times, scroll patterns, what made them pause. She'd paused herself then, seeming to realize how it sounded. "We could predict someone's vote better than they could. And you use this to," Senator Williams had prompted, "to nudge. If someone scored high on neuroticism and had recently posted about job loss, they'd see ads about dangerous immigrants. If they valued tradition but showed signs of economic anxiety, they'd get messages about the deep state destroying American values. We didn't change minds, we just aimed them." Mindbridge dissolved 2 weeks after the election, its executives scattering like roaches when the lights came on. But by then, Fontaine was president-elect, and the algorithms had done their work. He'd won Wisconsin by 22,748 votes, Michigan by 10,704, Pennsylvania by 44,292. Less than 78,000 votes in a nation of 330 million. A rounding error with the power to reshape reality. Marla remembered election night, watching the returns in the newsroom, seeing her colleagues' faces shift from confidence to confusion to something like grief. But she'd felt something different, recognition, maybe. She'd seen this before in that Atlantic City ballroom, the moment when everyone realizes the game they thought they were playing wasn't the game at all. "President Fontaine," she'd whispered, testing how the words felt. They felt like bankruptcy. They felt like a system reorganizing around its own failure. They felt like the beginning of something nobody had a name for yet.